Welcome to Shawn's Thoughts. My name is Shawn, and you're here with me in front of this beautiful, rapidly flowing river. I'm trying to think of some adjectives for it, but nonetheless, just, let's take in the beauty. Thank you for sharing your time and attention with me. And today I wish to share with you a continuation of my thoughts on why we're unable to see equally among everyone. See, I've often talked about how we all have different perspectives of things. Some people might see what I'm doing right now as dangerous, but yet I trust that when I sit down here that I'll be looked after. And, a person who might feel that this is dangerous could think that way because they themselves had some sort of incident that had happened to them. And see, this incident could have been, and I say could because I'm leaving the possibility for that I'm completely wrong, that they experienced something in the past. And this past could have been, as I said, this life in their childhood perhaps, or, a teenager experience, or they could have even been in a previous generation of our world, of our lineage, of our families. One of the things that I was fortunate enough to come across is that the traumas sometimes that we hold on to are generational. Means that the traumas perhaps that our great-grandparents or, great-great-great-great-grandparents, some have said up to 7 generations, I've heard 5 as well, from different sources. And yet the concept truly does hold weight, I believe. That we do hold traumas that are from our parents and from our parents' parents. Because if you think about it, oftentimes the actions of the things that we do, they are caused by traumas. Means someone could have been in a fit of rage because they experienced some sort of trauma themselves, and then because of that trauma, they lashed out and created a further trauma in someone. So that's kind of like a really good example of showing it physically. But I've also understood it to be energetically passed down, perhaps somehow through the DNA or the light code of the human body or such. And why I bring this up is because everything that happens in our lives and beyond what we even know to be our lives affects us in some form or fashion. And so therefore, since we all haven't ever had the exact all similar experiences, we couldn't necessarily, relate to everything the same. Yes, there can be a collective consciousness that, bridges that common sense ideologies, but yet, the smallest division or the smallest difference in one person's life could make a substantial difference in how one specific situation turns around. And therefore, right from the get-go, we're all at different starting lines for each race that we race upon when we meet in, connection with one another. And we may not have the experiences to bridge some of the gaps that we get stuck on. Some of the trials, we may not have the tools, for example. Like, for instance, when you're doing The Amazing Race, which was a pretty interesting show that I would love to have participated in, each of those contestants all had different skills and different relationships, different pre-existing situations, and different experiences, perhaps even such as just their language sometimes. They were able to utilize, a local language far better than others, depending on what their past experiences and their lineages were. And so we often aren't even able to see what each other sees because we're all coming from a different vantage point, a different starting point, as I said. And yet it's also a large part to do that if the individual is even ready for something. See, for instance, if, we're talking about the possibility of aliens and life beyond, our own planet. Well, many people who have yet to even consider a tree a being, or the Sasquatches and perhaps other mythological creatures that we call mythology, that they were in fact real. So jumping all the way over to, there are aliens out there, and yet not, or being challenged to perhaps even embrace, fully accept that beings like the Sasquatch, that they truly do exist, that there is enough evidence on our planet to stop moving it around from a conspiracy or an ancient aliens TV show into reality, that just because we haven't seen it doesn't necessarily mean it's not there. And that's oftentimes the challenges that we're brought upon with, is that because we haven't seen it, it's challenging to actually therefore see it. It's almost as if the old saying that seeing is believing. And I really, really do hold much belief in that saying. As I've talked about before, there was this time trial on this game called Titanfall, and you had to beat it really, really fast. And I tried for hours and hours, and I mean hours, I mean a long time, to figure out how to do it myself, to train myself on it, to find the best possible routes. And eventually, I had to watch time trials. And then I had to find the route, and then I had to find the time trials and watch them. And I watched several different people doing it. And therefore, until I was able to actually, seeing is believing, and therefore I did it myself. I think I tried a couple more times after that to repeat it, but it was a very, very challenging video game achievement. All for 10 gamer score, I believe. So, as I was saying, this is essentially a continuation, because a lot of the reason why a person can't see something is because they aren't necessarily perhaps even ready to do that they haven't reached that sort of alignment, that sort of acknowledgement that, step A exists, or step, A, B, C, D, before we jump all the way to, Y and Z. And, that's one of my challenges often when I share information with people. I get the idea that what I said to them was delivered and received the way that I intended it, but I came to the realization that that's not always necessarily what happens. Sometimes, as I said, we deliver information and it's received differently than we expected. And even then, sometimes I would get excited about some new discovery that I had learned about, and then I would want to tell whoever it is, and I would do a decent job, at least in my mind, relating it and trying to make it a little more understandable about how that particular piece of information relates to, why I brought it up. But oftentimes, I guess it's just that I'm so excited to share that information. And that's honestly one of the things that I truly do look forward to, is connecting with people that are open to the possibilities of so many wonderful potentials that we have and perhaps our experience even right now. The sky right now is just so beautiful. They got the pink and the blue. It's because the clouds are somewhat pinky because of the blue sky, and they're just puffed clouds with the sunset going down on them. It's extremely lovely. This will be my almost 3 weeks now. And, to be honest, I am so grateful. I'm grateful for not just being out here, but also for, all of the people that I've interacted with along this way, and all of the wonderful people that have helped with, several different things, from, giving directions, driving, helping me out when I needed some money, and, just being there to talk with sometimes just being there to sit beside. I think part of this whole awakening experience is having a decent amount of time alone with yourself, within not necessarily isolation, but within the tranquility of your own mind, to have those thoughts, to do those reflections, but also to essentially detach from all of the things that perhaps consumed your energy. And I'm not just talking about, the looshing and, all of the economic stuff and whatever. I also mean just, the worries and the worries and the concerns. You know, having to, oh, there's a ducky coming into the frame, or some sort of bird. Having to concern yourself with other people's challenges, other people's concerns. And sometimes it's not just when they actually speak to you, it's even them being within your proximity and, you know, passing by them on the street. Sometimes it's great to get outside and just connect with the trees and the water and the sky and the air, the clouds, and even the smoke from the campfires was pretty amazing. So yeah, sometimes it's quite advantageous just to simply be. And I think that was even some part of, you know, a lot of the different people that came and reached a state of enlightenment, that they had that opportunity to isolate themselves, but not isolate as in the negative one. I mean, just, yeah, those moments of isolation, those moments of solidarity, or I don't know, just being by yourself. Can't think of the right word. But that's maybe because I'm just supposed to like sit here and just relax. So anyways, I'm gonna leave it right there. The smaller the videos, the easier the upload. Yet, as I said, this was just somewhat of a continuation. So if you got something from the first one, maybe the second one will add on to that. Or, you know, if you've now listened to the second one, well, you can go back to the first one or repeat the second one. Who knows, right? Anyways, thank you so much and enjoy the rest of the scene.